Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
Welcome to Arts and Lifestyle Wednesday, presented by Cinematic Visions, and another fun edition of Danny and Tim's Music Scene. Well, fun is a relative thing. We always have fun, and music is an evergreen enterprise, so you get to talk about a lot of different things, but certainly we have some tragedy to talk about, and three people who either passed on a day that was commemorated, like Prince, with his Grammy tribute to Prince last night, and a couple of other more under-the-radar musical people in John Prine and Hal Willne of Saturday Night Live fame, I guess. He was more behind-the-scenes person, and John Prine's a very iconoclastic songwriter with a unique voice and presence, to say the least. And, of course, we also are getting the downside news of many large cities and governors looking in their crystal ball and not seeing the possibility of large gatherings in maybe anywhere the near future at all, maybe the entire year of 2020. And that, of course, impacts us on our ability to go see shows and go to clubs and see live music, and try to replace it with people posting things online and shows like the Prince show or the Global Citizen event on Sunday, but those are getting a little tried and true, to say the least. So we certainly always explore things, and there is no bigger fan of Prince in the world than Tim Finn, so I couldn't wait to get his insights into not only the show, but Prince itself. And as you'll hear, he was far more into talking about Prince itself than the show, which he liked, but you'll hear, I think, what a sentiment was. It was a sentiment of my wife. It's a sentiment of Tim. And without me trying to explain it, why don't we just listen to it? Coming up next, Danny and Tim's Music Scene. For this particular go-round, every other week we do it with Tim Finn from In Kansas City Magazine, longtime and very respected musical writer for The Star.
Cinematic Visions has been an affordable solution for professional media production in Kansas City since 2003, offering award-winning video production and creation, as well as a wide array of digital and social media management services. From planning, scripting, filming, editing, and post-production, to delivering your product to a watching world, Cinematic Visions will provide professional and affordable services for you and your business with the necessary return on investment to make it all worthwhile. Cinematic Visions' goal is to unlock the power of storytelling through video and a strong online presence for your company. Beyond the numbers, they want to inspire and evoke your clients to feel and act. Let my friends at Cinematic Visions embed your brand where it belongs, in your customers' minds. You can find them online at cinematicvisions.com or with a quick phone call at 816-600-6300.
Hey everyone, this is Matt Llewellyn from 23rd Street Brewery, wishing you well while you stay safe during this time of uncertainty. Due to the recent news, you won't be able to get the same in-restaurant experience at the 23rd Street Brewery that you've come to expect over the past 16 years. But you can get the same delicious items prepared with the highest level of staff cleanliness available for carryout and delivery through our partners Eat Street. You can also still enjoy our craft beers and crowlers for to-go service. So remember, stay safe, and together we will all get through this time of uncertainty.
My friends at Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture are among the most accomplished and trusted clinics in the nation. Only one clinic has been rated in the top 5 in all 3 categories of chiropractic care, acupuncture, and rehabilitation, and that clinic is ASFCA. They have locations in Olathe, Overland Park, Prairie Village, Belton, and Lee Summit. Doctors Brad and Christina Woodle and their accomplished team of doctors and therapists will treat you like family, for the simplest of injuries to the most complicated conditions to avoid surgery. Whether you are seeking treatment for an injury or just looking to stay healthy and fit, this is the place for you. And it's been the place for me for almost 2 years now. I've been a strenuous daily exerciser for years, and as time goes on, that takes its toll. But regular appointments at Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture have helped keep me ticking on, and even as the years pile up, their regular care has allowed me to keep to my regimen and feel great. If you want to feel the same, give them a call or visit them at asfca.com/Danny. They accept all insurances and are open Monday through Saturday, and make sure to mention that Danny Clinkscale recommended Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture.
If you'd like to join these and other great sponsors and market your business to a growing and engaged audience, contact us at Danny@DannyClinkscale.com. Look forward to hearing from you.
Tim, we've talked about Prince many different times on this particular podcast. I guess it's both. And you obviously are a very enthusiastic fan of Prince and think that he is one of the more brilliant musicians of this or maybe any generation. And he was tributed last night. First of all, do you have any clue when they did that? Because that was what I was thinking when it was going on. I'm like, man, I'm glad they got this in and done so that we could see it. Obviously, it was planned to come out on the 4th anniversary of his passing, but I don't have any idea about the logistics. But thank goodness they were able to do this, well, I guess as of a month ago.
Yeah, I knew nothing about it, so I started hearing about it, Monday and Tuesday. So I did watch it. I didn't watch all of it. The more I watched it, the more I realized that if I'm going to listen to Prince, the person I want to hear performing Prince is Prince. So I like Earth, Wind & Fire. I've seen the Foo Fighters do Darling Nikki before. There were some really good performances. But I found myself, feeling a little more sorrowful as the night went on, just because obviously he wasn't there. So, but it's also, it was such a tribute to him. How many great songs he wrote. Just fabulous. What a strong songwriter. And how many people over a wide breadth of genres adored him. Absolutely. So he was just a universally loved and respected songwriter, musician. What I watched yesterday more than a few times was that his performance at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame when he was with Tom Petty and other, mostly Tom Petty's band, doing While My Guitar Gently Weeps. And I never get tired of watching that because he's got some of the best musicians in the world behind him, and they're just staring at him in awe. And that's what Prince did, He he may do every night. It's parallel. I watched the Michael Jordan thing the other night. The Prince reminds me of Michael Jordan. Like, he never took a minute off. It doesn't matter how many shows he'd done or how many times he performed a song. He wanted to win and wanted to be the best, and he was. And it's so obvious. There's another video that I watched a couple of times yesterday, and it's the one where James Brown is performing. He brings Michael Jackson up on stage. This is like 1983, 84, right around the time Thriller was out and Purple Rain was coming out, and Michael Jackson comes up and does the moonwalk. This is right after that had already been aired on TV and was famous. And so Michael Jackson is up there, and then James Brown calls for Prince, who comes into this arena on the shoulders of a huge bodyguard, grabs a guitar, and then is immediately the biggest personality in the room. Like, you just see Michael Jackson and James Brown, two great live performers, standing back going, wow. And that's Prince. It's easy to find it. It's all over YouTube, but that's even before he had really broken, and he was not intimidated. He was respectful, but like, all right, try this,
As I, by the way, you have a kindred spirit in my wife who loved the show, absolutely loved it. I enjoyed it. She loved it more than I did, and I liked it quite a bit. But at one point she said, "Well, all this show is missing is Prince."
Right.
And that certainly is the case. There were many good performances, and Morris Day, I thought he was really good, and that was good, and a lot of fun things were done. But as the evening wore on, the feeling I got, and yes, you want to see Prince, but he's not going to be there, and there were a lot of very good performances and great songs. Just wanted to run this one past you. And my wife completely disagreed with me, so you may completely disagree with me, and actually the question itself lends itself to Prince's greatness. As they were, we'd gone in and there'd been 15, 18 great songs already, I found myself thinking to myself, I like his pop rock songs more than his funk soul songs. Not that I don't like the other ones, and the crowd clearly was dancing and having fun to that, but
right.
I found myself appreciating the pop rock songs more than the other ones. What about that sentiment from me?
Well, I mean, there's something to what you're saying but I got the feeling he could write songs like Manic Monday, which he didn't record, the Bengals did, or Raspberry Beret. He could write 3 of those a day. Like those weren't like much of an effort for him, but those are some of my favorite Prince songs. So the catchy ones, the poppy ones are great, but he could write the funkiest of funk, and maybe their charms aren't as like immediate as poppy songs are, but yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, but I think it just goes to show how diverse he was as a songwriter, or even the ballads, in comparison to You, what a great song, and Purple Rain. So it's like there's nothing he couldn't write, but I know what you mean. Yeah, I just think he could whip out a pop song, probably in 2 hours, and it'd be really good.
Hey, we've got a new artist, and we need to give him a break. Could you whip up something really catchy and fancy? And obviously, he well could. Yeah. Oh, we've watched a lot of documentaries and music things during the coronavirus thing, and we watched a movie about the Gallagher brothers, Oasis, the other day, and they were troubled to say the least, and. It just is, and my wife continually says this, and she comes from a world where the greatest musicians generally don't succumb to substance abuse in the world of opera. We just lose so many of these great artists to this, and you just wonder, you can't just say it was the time because it continues to this day. Back in the day, you could say, well, it was the 60s, it was the 70s, whatever. Have you got any particular thoughts on how this happens and why we lose so many great people who have certainly plenty to live with, artistic fulfillment, whatever? I mean, in some cases, I guess there's, pain involved and, physical pain involved. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, there's a difference. Like, with Hendrix and Jim Morrison and, Janis Joplin, go back then, Kurt Cobain. But what happened with Prince and Michael Jackson, like those two guys were born in the same year within like weeks of each other. Think about that. And then Madonna was born like a month later. So 1958 was a good year. But they both, Prince and Michael Jackson, died. It was accidental, and it was addiction to, painkillers, or they were dealing with, or anxiety, whatever it was. So yes, it was addiction, but it wasn't like heroin, They were taking it as medication. And same with Tom Petty,
Right.
It's heartbreaking because, not that it isn't when someone, like, Kurt Cobain is an addict and he ends up killing himself kind of because of it, but it's heartbreaking when it was preventable and then death was not the intent, So I think it's, opioids are, it's the other pandemic. It's, and it's inexplicable. And I've known people that I know have succumbed to it, guys in their 30s, it's, and it's really devastating. And, I think it's not exclusive to music. And, you could take this deep and just go, it's this whole medicate yourself and
right.
over-medicate yourself. And there's no stopping it or controlling it. So it's just so sad, especially because I was thinking yesterday, Prince's death was like the deepest blow of them all, because he was so unique and he managed to sustain this mystique about him because he was private and he wasn't about being in the spotlight and the media, and there was some mystery about him. I watched yesterday an interview he did with Chris Rock that I posted on my Facebook page that I hadn't seen before. It's like 20 minutes. It's just brilliant. Chris Rock did a great job of getting out of Prince information and opinions and responses that I hadn't heard before, and sort of revealing part of who he was. And what he was just this deeply sensitive, thoughtful, articulate artist. Like, we call a lot of people artists, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Steven Tyler is an artist, I guess. But I think Prince was a real artist, like up there with the elite of the elite in music. And watching that is even like, God, did I really need to see that today? Because it just makes it hurt worse that he's not around. And who would we need more today than a guy like him?
Absolutely, for a variety of reasons, no question about that. But there always will be, unfortunately, I guess fortunately, I've always said this is sort of a two-sided issue. When people die, and especially when they die too young, and they are great actors or musicians or authors or whatever, at least they leave their work. And in some regards, when they die young, it does create even more of a mystique about them. Now, Prince wasn't young, but he was certainly he certainly had many years of performing left in them, and so it's kind of a two-sided thing. It almost increases the fame in some ways, but of course you miss them.
Right. Well, I think he just, especially when he died in 2016, when social media was, in full rampage, that he was just always, he sustained his privacy. I remember after he died, hearing postmortem about all these charities he had run and contributed to, and it was a hard rule. Like, if you work for him, do not talk about this. He does not want it out that he's donated whatever $50,000 to some youth athletic thing in Oakland or whatever it is. And when he was gone, because you would get fired if you did, he did not want it out, and most of the time it didn't get out. He just wanted. I don't think he wanted like an image of himself other than which was created by his live music and his albums and his recorded music. And beyond that, he was very careful about what got out about him. And even, 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, when it seems like he started to know everything about everybody because either it was discovered or captured on a smartphone, or they were putting it out themselves on their social media platforms. And Prince never engaged in that. And it was kind of rare for someone of his stature to go, I don't need that. I'm going to pretend like it's 1984 again.
Yeah, we cannot recreate that as well. We're speaking with our usual every other week visit with Tim Finn on Danny and Tim's Music Scene, and we'll continue coming up next. We lost a couple other people from the music industry. Of course, Prince was lost 4 years ago, but was celebrated last evening. We'll talk about that and the seemingly nuclear winter we are facing as far as live music is concerned. All that straight ahead, right here.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
We're here with Joe Spiker, the CEO and president of Easton Roofing. And Joe, you had a great year in 2019, a record year. 2020 comes, things are moving smoothly along, and then the coronavirus comes. But your company seemed to be very ready, very proactive, and very ready to serve your customers well.
Yeah, we adopted social distancing very early before the cities even put out the notices. And we started working from home. We are largely cloud-based as a company, so that transition was easy. Our technicians are wearing masks and gloves, and salespeople are not meeting with homeowners. We're doing everything digitally and doing everything we can to do our part to get over this as quickly as possible.
So for any needs that people have right now, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, you can always call us, 913-257-5426. But the best way is to go to eastonroofing.com, put your information in, and we'll give you a call.
Easton Roofing. Integrity matters.
For many people, a family law case will be one of the most difficult experiences in their life. The law firm of Kenneth McRae will help you through it. Personal and effective help from Ken in concert with you will develop a unique strategy for your unique case. As Ken always says, divorce can be civil law, not civil war. Licensed in Kansas? Visit McRaeLawOffice.com or call 913-972-4765.
We're visiting with Larry Marshall, former Chiefs defensive back and punt returner and now a Chiefs ambassador. Larry is a former pro football player with the aches and pains that come with that, and moving on in age as we all are. What do the Canaway CBD products do for you?
It's been a great relief for me. Being a punt and kickoff returner, collisions were a mainstay of my career, and these Canaway products, the salve especially, has really helped me try to get through every day with the aches and pains that I've had over a career of 7+ years in the NFL.
I get similar benefits as well, particularly with my back. Certainly wasn't a football player. What's the best way for our listeners to get more information about the great products themselves?
Well, I'm so enthused about it, Dana. They just contacted me at larrymarshall.canaway.com, and I can give them all the information they need to help them get through the day as well.
Start gaining all the benefits that Larry and I do from the trusted and reliable line of Canaway products. As Larry said, visit larrymarshall.canaway.com and get information on all the great products from Canaway. If you'd like to join these and other great sponsors and market your business to a growing and engaged audience, contact us at danny@dannyclinkscale.com. Look forward to hearing from you. Back with Tim Finn from In Kansas City Magazine, struggling these days for us to find things to talk about, Tim, but music is so evergreen that we always can seemingly come up with things to talk about, and unfortunately sometimes it's because people have passed away or we're remembering them passing away. And John Prine recently died at age 73, someone who had a lot of physical problems during the later portion of his life anyway. A very unique and extremely well-respected songwriter, singer without a voice, per se.
Right.
And just somebody who I think was a completely unique person of his time and maybe of any time.
Yeah, he was one of those songwriters that made songwriters like Bob Dylan or Chris Christopherson or Guy Clark, Townsend Van Zandt, who were his peers, definitely, but they all recognized the uniqueness in John Prine, starting with his voice, which, yes, got more ravaged as he went through first throat cancer, which he survived, and then lung cancer, which he survived. And it's the way he wrote, it's how he wrote, it's the subjects, the people he approached in his songs, and what he tried to convey in his songs. There's this he grew up in suburban Chicago, or outside of Chicago, but his parents were from rural, almost Appalachian Kentucky, which was a place I think he probably visited a lot. He wrote about it, so definitely that was part of who he was, part of his identity. But there's the southern gothicness to some of his songs that you don't find in really anyone else, in the way he could turn a phrase, the way he could. Some of the songs he painted portraits, and you could visualize his music, the way he wrote it, the way he performed it. And by the end of the song, of a 3 or 4 minute song, you felt like you'd watched a short film on something, So you can find quotes from Dylan like only John Prine could have written that song. He owned that genre of songwriting. So when we heard he was sick at first, the news was devastating. It didn't look good. But then his wife posted something that said he had stabilized, which we found out later she just meant he stopped getting worse.
Right.
He wasn't getting better. He just wasn't getting worse. So maybe we, I don't know, figured he'll be out of the woods soon. And then, so when the word came, it was like a double blow the first time, and then final word. And I saw him in late, November of 2018. He had just released his most recent studio album was called The Tree of Forgiveness. It was his first collection of songs he'd written or co-written in 13 years. He had a couple of cover albums or albums of cover songs, So after 12 or 13 years, you're wondering, can he still write a song? Is he, he's in his 70s, done through a lot, but this record proved that he still had the chops in him. So it was really encouraging. Saw him at the Midland, 5 times I've seen him. It was my favorite show ever because he was so spry and so funny. He actually did this little jig between the last song of his first set and the encore. People just went nuts. And I remember wrote in the review, which I reposted on Facebook, like John Prine always comes back. He beat cancer twice. We thought he had maybe, writer's block, or his muse had disappeared, but nope, here it is. And it's great to know that he's back. And whenever we read that, it just like stabbed me because he conquered so much, and then he couldn't beat this thing like too many other people.
Absolutely the case, and certainly a wildly respected person. And then when you texted me about what we might talk about, you brought up the name of Al Willne, and he was the musical director, I guess, of sorts for Saturday Night Live. He picked the music that went with the skits and things like that. I had to be honest, I knew the name, but that was about it. Tell me about his importance in the music scene and why he was a respected person whose loss was felt so strongly. First of all, it was from coronavirus. That's one thing, but what else?
Right. And he was only in his mid-60s, so he wasn't that old. He still had a lot of life left in him. So he was just this really sort of out of the periphery, beyond the periphery guy who did some really amazing collaborations. He was a good friend of Lou Reed's. So I interviewed him when I was at the Star. This was back in 2003 or 4, so it was a while ago. I remember the phone call, definitely, because he was such a enthusiastic and warm and friendly person who had a lot to say. Like, everything he said was smart or funny or informed. Just a memorable personality. He had just worked on this project with Lou Reed. They took me to Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven. So I'd listen to it, and it's one of those you could listen to it and go, okay, that's weird and interesting. David Bowie's on it, Lou Reed, Laurie Anderson, some actors like Steve Buscemi's on there. It's just really cool little bit. But anyway, it's not something you're going to want to pick up or play like every week or so. It's like, you listen to it once and you get it. Go, well, that's interesting. He indulged in those kind of projects. And what I first heard of him was when he did this tribute to the Disney, all the music from the Disney films. It's called Stay Awake. Mm-hmm. Various interpretations of music from Disney films. I look for it it's probably on Spotify. I would love to have it on vinyl, but it's all like people like Michael Stipe and Natalie Merchant do a song. Los Lobos, Bonnie Raitt with Was Not Was does Baby Mine from Dumbo. John Waits does this version of Hi Ho, the Dwarfs marching song that will completely eradicate your memory of the original, and it will just take over your as the version of the song because it's just perfect. So I think that was probably his peak of these many weird tribute collaborations he did. In addition to, for 40 years, he was like the musical director of SNL, and he either scored or picked the music for their skit, not just their skits, but like the
little films,
film version.
Right,
yeah. And I don't know if you watched it. Was it last week? I don't know what day it is right now, but it was last Saturday and Saturday before, where they had like cast members going back to the mid '80s. They paid tribute to him and talking as much about his genius, but also about what just a live and emotional and open person he was, and how he was one of those people who, if you're having a sour day, he'd sweeten it up right away. Just encountering him, whether it was for a minute or 10 minutes. Pete Davidson was the one that really struck me because he is a young kid who was talking about addiction issues and depression, and he looked like the most grieved. Like, this guy was like my favorite uncle in the world. So everyone was speaking to him as a person as well as a genius, and it was tough to watch. I mean, I got really choked up because I remember feeling that way after I talked to him. He treated me like he'd known me for a while, and so I got it. And yeah, he's someone who was kind of in the background, and most people don't know, but until you find out, he did that. They were showing some of the skits or short films that he, for which he produced or found the music, and so he had an influence that we didn't even know about. And just to reiterate, I would highly recommend, if you can find that tribute to the Disney music from the Disney films. It's called Stay Awake, but it's brilliant, and it set me looking for that CD in my collection the day I heard he died.
Absolutely, a great name and Jimmy Fallon. I watched a couple of them. He broke down when he was talking about him. So just to have somebody in their passing probably get as much notoriety as he ever did during the course of his life, I guess is a blessing, a slight blessing in itself.
Right, because for him, like, attention wasn't what he was looking for. It was just like expressing himself creatively and doing daring, weird things with people he really respected. He and Lou Reed were really close friends, which, I mean, if you could sustain a friendship with Lou Reed, because I don't know, it's pretty irascible, what I hear, it speaks a lot. It speaks a lot to who he was as a person. And it's, like I said, he was like 63 or 64, and it's like, damn, he had so much left in him.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, how much live music we have in us for 2020 certainly is up in the air now, and the governor of California came out the other day and was, certainly not giving any good news when he was saying that he doesn't foresee large gatherings of people in 2020. Maybe other people are being a little more optimistic. I'll just reference, I've done a million times, the Mavericks had a show in May that was postponed. I have tickets now that are for September 26th. I am not very optimistic about that. And at one point in time, that's where we are in this world. When they rescheduled it at the time they did, I'm like, oh, September 26th. It's basically an outdoor venue. That's going to happen. Now, I really don't think so. And I think more and more we're headed toward a sort of musicless, sportsless with fans there. 2020, it's looking like even more.
It's not very encouraging. Although Knuckleheads in September, I'll give that a 1 in 5 shot, maybe. I don't think there's going to be anything at Sprint Center or even places like the Midland or the Uptown. Like, I don't think anything more than a couple hundred, but I don't know. Who knows? If it's not under control, why would 200 be better than 1,000? I don't know. Because how can you create whatever space may need to be created so that, this virus isn't spread? So it's not encouraging. Sports, okay, the teams can play with nobody in the stands. I'd watch that right now.
Yeah.
In a minute. But you can't do that with live music. I mean, it's no. I don't. I mean, unless someone does it from their home. But let's face it, that's a good Band-Aid, but it's not the same. It just really isn't the same.
Yeah, I was gonna talk about that. We just had another one of those events on TV and with the World Citizen, Global Citizen event on Sunday, and it was good. And I watched it, most of it. But it's like, okay, this is about the 6th one of these we've had, and
are you talking about the one with Jimmy Fallon and Jimmy?
Yeah, with all the networks, that it was on all the networks at the same time.
Except Fox.
Yeah. You're just getting to the point where, okay, well, so-and-so's going to put out some tunes from their basement, and, there's getting to be a little Groundhog Day. All the things that at first you're like, oh, that's a good little remedy, and you called it exactly correctly, a Band-Aid. Well, the Band-Aid is starting to, rub off because we've taken too many showers.
Yeah. So just as a sidebar, that Jimmy Fallon and the Ritz did the safety dance.
Yes.
And they showed a lot of nurses and first responders and healthcare workers in that. My wife was in that for like 2 seconds because they came up in bed. Yeah, right around the 53-second mark.
Okay, I'll look for it again because it was great. It's worth watching again. That was probably the highlight of the evening.
It was one of the best moments of the evening. Yes, it was. I love that song, and they treated it perfectly. But yeah, I mean, watching Elton John sing with this basketball hole behind him and 2 basketballs, what am I watching here?
Right.
Is Elton working on a 3-point shot in his spare time? I don't know. But, yeah, it's just part of it's like you watch this and go, well, what else am I going to watch? You know,
right?
There's live music.
Yeah, absolutely, and we crave it, and I guess that means we'll love it even more. Do you get the sense that when this, we do start to get the all clear for certain venues, or you can have a gathering over 500, do you have the feeling that people are just going to come storming back, or are they going to come tiptoeing back? Let's just keep it to music or clubs or whatever. What's your thought there?
I don't think anybody knows. And the other variable, Danny, is will people have money to buy tickets?
Right.
Because that's another thing. There's also some resentment about tickets not being refunded. We bought a tickets to an event at the Midland. It was for a podcast. And, it dropped to 150. And we're having been told the money will be returned, but it hasn't returned yet. And there's no clear sign that it's going to, which is, it's whatever. But there are probably some people who drop money on tickets. I guess if you spent money on sporting events, they're saying, well, we can't give you your money back because it's postponed, it's not canceled. So I think that's all going to contribute to this notion of, well, okay, I'm working again, but I got debts to pay.
Mm-hmm.
I got to make up some financial time. And so I don't know. My sense is like, yes, I don't care who it is. I'm going to go see the show just to dive into that pool again. But that's something we really don't know. And the consequences are just so vast. Like I told you, someone in my family is part of the behind the scenes as a sound person living in LA. And that's just one element of the broad spectrum of people who are employed by live music that is feeling it heavily. And the road to recovery, who knows what it's going to take and what it's going to be and how long it's going to be.
No question about that. We try to remain optimistic, but there's always music around in its various forms, but there's nothing like going to a live show or seeing somebody you haven't ever seen in a club and discovering that. We hope we're back to that maybe in 2021. Tim, always a pleasure.
Okay, thanks, Danny.
We hope you enjoyed the latest Danny Klingscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Come back soon for something fresh and new. This podcast was made possible by our great sponsors like the law offices of Kenneth McRae, developing a unique strategy for your family law case. Divorce can be civil law, not civil war.